Good morning. Thank you very much. So I'm Barry. I'm from Fcase. I'm based in London. And our focus here at Fcase is basically to reduce fraud, customer friction, and improve the overall operational efficiency within banks. I'm not going to show my demo, first of all. I'm going to give you a picture of physically what fraud looks like within a bank, how they protect against fraud. First of all, if you're a tier 1 bank, you're probably going to end up with 30, 40 plus fraud systems. That's the reality. If you are a starter bank, you're going to have 1 or 2, and you're seriously not protected against the threats. You're new, you're on the market, and for sure, you're going to be attacked significantly. The reality is everything is managed today in a hierarchy. There's management at the top, and there's different silos below. The reality is, in fraud, there is no hierarchy. It simply does not exist. What happens is there's different fraud systems for different problems. There's not one fraud solution in the world that addresses absolutely everything. It just doesn't exist. It hasn't been invented today. So if you're a bank and you have a fraud system, you end up with transactional monitoring, phishing, malware. You're going to have anti-money laundering. You're going to have another transactional monitoring system for maybe online banking or mobile banking. At the end of the day, you're going to repeat this for absolutely every single country of operation. One company I'm speaking to has over 348 fraud systems. Every single one of them is disconnected. The customer services is disconnected from the physical fraud channels as well. So picture this. I physically go into a Starbucks. I connect to their Wi-Fi. Instantly, I get an email, and it's given me an offer to, I don't know, whatever it might be. I click on that offer, and then I get a discount code, which I could use in the future. The reality is what actually happened was that discount code doesn't really exist. Underneath is malware, and now that malware is reading everything on my computer and stealing all my information. That information goes back to a central hub, typically the fraudster's hub, and actually they're analyzing that data. Now, fraudsters use machine learning a lot more than actually the companies that obviously protect your services. Once they gathered that information, they typically change a device. Sometimes they actually use the same device because they've SIM swapped. And shortly after, money's missing from your bank account. Now, that's 4 fraud systems. The whole story, the 4 components of that fraud, is across 4 fraud systems that are completely separated, completely siloed. The reality is there's around about 40% of all frauds in all banks go undetected because of the silos. Fraud should be data-driven. It's certainly not data-driven. So the reality is you need to bring all of the data together into one place to have an effective fraud strategy. Without that data in one place, you cannot do automation in fraud. You certainly can't do manual investigations correctly, and certainly there's a huge disconnect with customer services, which basically means trust is low. There's many scenarios where your card is blocked. You might travel to another country. My card was blocked when I come here. I'm from London. I went to use my card in a taxi, and it was blocked. Absolutely no indication why it was blocked. Spent 25 minutes speaking to my bank to actually ask them why it was blocked, and they said the machine said it was blocked. They had no idea why it was blocked. That's the reality. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log into my session and quite simply show you the challenge of fraud orchestration. Now, this is a fraud orchestration tool. Simply what we do is we take data from absolutely every fraud element. We sit on top of the fraud systems that coexist within the company. Like the example I gave you, 348 fraud systems. We sit on top. We are like NASA. We are mission control of fraud operations. That's simply what we do. 2 stages to our solution. The very first thing we do is we find the fraud story. We collect all the data together to say this bit of data and this bit of data is actually the fraud. Okay, and this come across multiple systems. Then we generate basically a ticket queue. However, this ticket queue could be managed automatically or manually. If automatically, quite simply, we're going out to core banking systems and blocking cards and sending SMSs to customers and actually asking them, did they make this transaction? Once they confirm, we unblock the card and we allow the transaction. So we're actually connecting to all the underlying systems. We're physically managing the whole element of fraud. In this scenario that I'm going to give you, and I'll just make the screen a little bit bigger, I click on a specific ticket, and the scenario I gave you when I'm in a coffee shop, this particular alert is from a fraud system called Trusteer. And Trusteer has identified the reason being phishing. This is a phishing alert. Typically, in any single bank, you would just simply say, it's phishing. Nothing's happened yet. No crime has happened, but phishing is going on. What Fcase has done is we found 3 other similar cases. And if I physically look at an activities view, simply I have the whole story of the fraud from start to end. This is the very, very first time this has been done in fraud investigations. No one has absolutely done this. This is the, let's say, the epiphany of fraud investigations. It's a challenge. Lots of different data from lots of different places with lots of different IDs. It's a significant challenge, and fraudsters are constantly trying to hide their data. So it becomes, let's say, not so visible for fraud investigations. The second event in here is another event from a different fraud system, and this one's called Lookout. It's noticed that this reason is malware, and the actual malware type is something called Spitmo, a very standard malware. If I look at the next event, and this is just the story of fraud, what's actually happened from start to end. If I look at the story, I can see using link analysis that this is me, and I've logged onto my bank account 20 times, and this is a new device. Now, this might be okay. In fraud investigations, a new device is fine. Someone's bought a new mobile phone. The difference here is this new device is also accessing many other bank accounts on the network. Sometimes you see hundreds and hundreds of, let's say, devices being accessed. This is a really, really bad device. This is the fraudster. As I go up in the chain, I simply see that someone has changed their location and using a brand new mobile phone. So there was malware, phishing, then malware, they changed their phone, and then the very last reason is an unusual amount spent for the customer. This is fraud orchestration. We can automate this. Simply, we reduce fraud by 40%, customer friction by 20%, and we do that every single day for many, many customers. We're the first to market, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you.